My name is Sarah. I'm 32 years old, and the moment I stood up to my mother changed everything forever. For years, she'd thrown the same poison at me. You'll never be as good as your sister Jessica. But that day, when she sneered those words while I was literally paying her mortgage, something inside me snapped. I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "Then ask Jessica to pay your bills." The silence that followed wasn't just awkward, it was the sound of 30 years of family lies crumbling down. Hey everyone! Before we dive into this wild family drama that'll make your jaw drop, I'm curious, where are you watching from today? If you've ever dealt with toxic family comparisons, hit that like button because this story is about to get intense. And definitely subscribe because family revenge stories like this don't come around often. Trust me, you'll want to see how this golden child facade completely falls apart. Now, let's get into how one sentence destroyed decades of family manipulation. Growing up in the Martinez household meant living in Jessica's shadow from day one. Mom made it crystal clear who the favorite was. Jessica got the bigger bedroom, the nicer clothes, and most importantly, the endless praise. I was 3 years younger, but somehow expected to match her achievements while receiving none of the support. When Jessica made honor roll, Mom threw a party. When I made honor roll, she said, "Well, Jessica did it first." The pattern was suffocating and relentless. Every family gathering became a Jessica appreciation ceremony while I served as the cautionary tale. "Sarah's grades are slipping again," Mom would announce to relatives, but Jessica's maintaining her 4.0. It didn't matter that I was working part-time at 16 to help with household expenses while Jessica focused solely on her studies. The narrative was set. Jessica was the golden child destined for greatness, and I was the disappointment who'd never measure up. High school amplified these dynamics exponentially. Jessica glided through with effortless popularity, dating the quarterback and securing early admission to Northwestern. Meanwhile, I struggled with anxiety and self-doubt, my confidence systematically demolished by years of unfavorable comparisons. Mom's friends would gush about Jessica's accomplishments while I stood invisible beside her, my own achievements dismissed as adequate but not exceptional like Jessica's. The financial disparities were equally stark and painful. Jessica received a brand new car for her 16th birthday, a shiny red Mustang that became her throne of superiority. I got a rusty bicycle from a garage sale and was told to be grateful. Her college fund was robust and well-maintained. Mine was mysteriously depleted when application time arrived. "Jessica's education is an investment," Mom explained without shame, "but you're more of a hands-on learner anyway." College applications revealed the depth of Mom's favoritism most brutally. She spent weeks helping Jessica craft the perfect essays, driving her to campus visits, and networking with alumni connections. When my turn came, she handed me a stack of brochures for community colleges and said, "This is more realistic for someone with your limitations." The word stung because it was delivered with such casual cruelty, as if my intellectual inferiority was simply accepted family fact. Jessica thrived at Northwestern, majoring in business with a minor in psychology, while I scraped together funds for the local state university. Even then, Mom's pride was reserved exclusively for her golden child. Jessica's graduation was a family celebration complete with professional photography and an expensive dinner. My graduation was acknowledged with a card that arrived 3 days late and a generic "congratulations" message inside. The workplace dynamics continued this established pattern ruthlessly. Jessica landed a prestigious internship at a Fortune 500 company through Mom's connections, while I worked retail to pay my student loans. "Networking is everything," Mom would say, and Jessica understands how to leverage relationships properly. The implication was clear. I lacked the social intelligence to succeed in professional environments, another fundamental inadequacy in her assessment. Dating became another arena for unfavorable comparisons and maternal disappointment. Jessica's boyfriends were always such nice young men from good families, while mine were dismissed as unsuitable, regardless of their actual character or accomplishments. When Jessica announced her engagement to a lawyer, Mom started planning the wedding immediately. When I introduced my boyfriend, a teacher, she barely acknowledged his presence and later asked if I couldn't do better. The emotional toll of constant comparison created deep-seated insecurities that affected every aspect of my adult life. I second-guessed every decision, assuming I'd chosen incorrectly simply because it wasn't what Jessica would have done. Professional opportunities felt foreign and undeserved. Relationship happiness seemed temporary and fragile. The voice in my head was Mom's voice, always finding me lacking, always measuring me against an impossible standard. Family holidays became increasingly unbearable as Jessica's accomplishments multiplied while my achievements remained invisible. Her promotion was front-page family news. My successful project completion went unmentioned. Her vacation photos dominated conversation. My career milestone was glossed over in seconds. The asymmetry wasn't subtle, it was deliberate and devastating, designed to maintain the established hierarchy where Jessica reigned supreme and I remained perpetually inadequate. What Mom didn't broadcast during her endless Jessica worship sessions was the uncomfortable truth about our family's finances. Specifically, who was actually keeping the household afloat. While Jessica was building her picture-perfect life 3 states away, I was the one fielding Mom's increasingly desperate phone calls about overdue bills, mortgage payments, and medical expenses that somehow never seemed manageable on her fixed income. It started small, like most financial manipulation does in families. "Sarah, honey, could you help me with the electric bill this month? It's higher than expected." These requests came wrapped in shame and urgency, making refusal feel heartless. I was fresh out of college, working my first real job, but family loyalty meant sacrifice, right? I sent the money without question, believing it was temporary assistance during a rough patch. But the requests kept coming with increasing frequency and larger amounts. The water bill, the car insurance, groceries when money was tight before her Social Security check arrived. Each time, Mom promised it was a loan, that she'd pay me back once her finances stabilized. The promises were sincere-sounding, but never materialized into actual repayment. Instead, the requests escalated into expectations, and expectations became demands disguised as desperate needs. Meanwhile, Jessica's life unfolded like a glossy magazine spread on social media. Exotic vacations, designer handbags, expensive restaurants, and a beautiful downtown apartment that cost more per month than Mom's entire mortgage payment. Yet somehow, Jessica's financial contributions to family emergencies remained mysteriously absent from every conversation. When I tentatively suggested that Jessica might help with Mom's expenses, I was met with protective deflection. "Jessica has her own life to build. We can't burden her with these problems." The double standard became more apparent as months turned to years. I was expected to sacrifice my financial stability for family obligations while Jessica was protected from even knowing these obligations existed. My modest apartment stayed modest because every spare dollar went to Mom's endless needs. My vacation plans were perpetually postponed because family emergencies always took priority. My retirement savings remained embarrassingly small because present-day family obligations consumed any disposable income. The mortgage situation was the most egregious example of this financial manipulation. Mom had refinanced multiple times, extracting equity for home improvements and other expenses, leaving herself with payments she couldn't actually afford on her income. Rather than downsize or seek assistance from both daughters equally, she positioned me as the automatic solution to her poor financial planning. "I can't lose the house, Sarah. This is where you and Jessica grew up." What made it worse was Mom's complete lack of financial transparency about her actual situation. She'd cry poverty when asking for help, but I'd discover new purchases, unnecessary expenses, and financial decisions that suggested money management problems rather than genuine hardship. A new television appeared while she claimed inability to afford utilities. Restaurant receipts littered her kitchen while she pleaded for grocery money. The manipulation was becoming obvious, but family guilt kept me trapped in the cycle. Jessica remained blissfully unaware of any family financial struggles, protected by Mom's careful information management. Their phone calls centered on Jessica's achievements, social life, and career advancement. My calls were dominated by crisis management, payment schedules, and guilt-inducing financial emergencies. The emotional labor was as exhausting as the financial drain, creating resentment that built slowly but steadily over time. I started tracking the money I'd sent over the years, creating a spreadsheet that revealed shocking totals. Between mortgage contributions, utility payments, medical bills, car repairs, and general living expenses, I'd essentially become Mom's supplemental income source. The amount could have covered a substantial down payment on my own house or funded the graduate degree I'd been postponing for financial reasons. Attempts to establish boundaries were met with emotional manipulation that would make professional guilt trippers jealous. "I never thought my own daughter would abandon me in my time of need," became Mom's standard response to any suggestion that the financial arrangement needed restructuring. She'd invoke memories of childhood sacrifices she'd made, compare me unfavorably to Jessica's theoretical generosity, and generally weaponize maternal disappointment until I capitulated and sent the requested money. The breaking point approached as I realized this pattern would continue indefinitely unless something dramatic changed. Mom had no incentive to alter the arrangement while I remained willing to subsidize her lifestyle. Jessica had no awareness of the situation, so she couldn't share the responsibility even if she wanted to. I was trapped in a financial and emotional prison of my own enabling, watching my life stagnate while supporting someone who showed no appreciation for my sacrifices. While I was drowning in financial obligations and emotional manipulation, Jessica was crafting the perfect life narrative that Mom constantly referenced as the gold standard I'd never achieve. Her Instagram feed looked like a lifestyle magazine, carefully curated to showcase success, happiness, and effortless achievement. Every post reinforced the family mythology that Jessica was simply better at life, naturally gifted at making smart choices and avoiding the struggles that plagued ordinary people like me. Jessica's career trajectory seemed impossibly smooth compared to my constant uphill battles. Her MBA from Northwestern led directly to a consulting position at McKinsey, complete with signing bonus, relocation assistance, and a starting salary that exceeded my 5-year career projection. Mom shared every promotion, every accolade, every professional milestone with relatives and friends, turning Jessica's resume into family entertainment while my career progress remained unworthy of mention or celebration. The romantic relationship dynamics were equally infuriating in their apparent perfection. Jessica's engagement to Marcus, the successful lawyer, was treated like a royal wedding announcement in our family circles. Mom spent hours discussing wedding plans, venue options, and guest lists with Jessica, living vicariously through her golden child's fairy tale romance. My own relationships were dismissed as temporary distractions or poor judgment calls, never worthy of the same investment or enthusiasm from our mother. Financial success seemed to flow naturally to Jessica without effort or sacrifice, at least according to the carefully maintained family narrative. Her downtown Chicago apartment was featured in Mom's conversations like a tourist destination, complete with detailed descriptions of granite countertops, floor-to-ceiling windows, and modern amenities that demonstrated Jessica's superior life choices. The subtext was clear: successful people like Jessica earned beautiful spaces, while unsuccessful people like me deserved whatever modest accommodations they could afford. Social media became Jessica's platform for reinforcing her superiority through strategic sharing and subtle bragging. Vacation photos from Bali, wine tastings in Napa, weekend getaways to exclusive resorts, each post carefully designed to showcase a life of abundance and joy. Mom would screenshot these images and text them to me with comments like, "Look how happy Jessica looks," as if happiness itself was a commodity that Jessica had earned through her inherent worthiness. The wedding planning process revealed new levels of favoritism that I hadn't thought possible, even after years of experience with Mom's preferential treatment. Jessica's bridal shower was an elaborate affair with professional catering, custom decorations, and a guest list that read like Mom's social network directory. She spent months researching venues, comparing photographers, and discussing every detail with the enthusiasm typically reserved for personal life events rather than someone else's celebration. Professional networking became another arena where Jessica's advantages were systematically highlighted, while my career struggles were attributed to personal inadequacies. Mom would casually mention Jessica's industry connections, her ability to leverage relationships for career advancement, and her natural talent for professional networking. Meanwhile, my career challenges were framed as evidence of my inability to adapt to professional environments or build meaningful workplace relationships. The contrast became particularly stark during family phone calls, where Mom's conversations with Jessica sparkled with enthusiasm while our discussions were dominated by problems, obligations, and disappointments. Jessica called to share exciting news about work projects, travel plans, and social events. I called to discuss Mom's latest financial crisis, health concerns, or household emergencies that required immediate attention and financial contribution. Even Jessica's problems were somehow more sophisticated and worthy of family concern than mine. When she complained about work stress, it was framed as high-level professional challenges that demonstrated her important responsibilities. When I discussed work difficulties, they were evidence of my inability to handle basic job requirements. Her relationship concerns were complex emotional situations requiring nuanced advice. Mine were poor judgment calls that proved my inadequate understanding of healthy relationships. The geographic distance between Jessica and our family problems was strategically maintained through Mom's protective information filtering. Jessica remained blissfully unaware of financial struggles, health issues, or family drama that might require her emotional or financial contribution. She existed in a carefully maintained bubble where family meant holiday celebrations and congratulatory phone calls, not crisis management and sacrifice. What bothered me most was Jessica's apparent belief in her own mythology, her genuine conviction that her success was entirely self-made and her advantages were somehow earned rather than systematically provided. She spoke about her achievements with the confidence of someone who'd overcome obstacles rather than someone who'd been given every possible advantage. The lack of self-awareness was as frustrating as Mom's favoritism, perhaps more so because it seemed so willfully blind. The moment that shattered 3 decades of family dysfunction arrived on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, disguised as another routine financial emergency that would typically result in my immediate capitulation and another depleted bank account. Mom called with her usual combination of crisis urgency and maternal guilt, explaining that the mortgage payment was overdue and the bank was threatening foreclosure proceedings if payment wasn't received within 48 hours. "Sarah, I don't know what I'm going to do," she sobbed into the phone, deploying her most effective emotional manipulation tactics. "I've tried everything, but the money just isn't there this month. The house payment is $2,400, and I'm short by almost the entire amount. I can't lose this house. It's all I have left of your father's memory, all the family history we've built here." The familiar weight of family obligation pressed down on my shoulders like a lead blanket, threatening to crush my resolve before I could even formulate a response. This was the established pattern. Mom would present a financial crisis as my problem to solve. I would sacrifice my own financial stability to fix it, and life would continue until the next emergency arose. But something felt different this time, perhaps because I'd finally reached the breaking point of financial and emotional exhaustion. Instead of immediately agreeing to transfer money, I found myself asking questions that had never occurred to me before. "Mom, what happened to the money I sent last month for the house payment? You said that covered 3 months in advance." The question hung in the air like an accusation, creating uncomfortable silence where automatic compliance usually filled the space. "That money went to other expenses," she replied defensively. "The roof repair, remember? And then there were medical bills, and the car needed new tires. Money goes so quickly when you're on a fixed income, Sarah. You wouldn't understand because you don't have these responsibilities yet." Her response triggered something deeper than frustration. It was the recognition of systematic financial manipulation disguised as family loyalty. I'd been subsidizing her lifestyle for years while she maintained complete control over how my contributions were allocated, never providing transparency or accountability for money that represented significant personal sacrifice on my part. "Have you asked Jessica to help with the mortgage?" I asked, knowing the answer but needing to hear it spoken aloud. "She makes more money than I do, and this is her family home too. Surely she'd want to help prevent foreclosure." The silence that followed was pregnant with decades of unspoken family dynamics, the careful protection of Jessica's perfect life from the messy realities that I was expected to handle alone. When Mom finally responded, her voice carried a defensive edge that revealed how carefully she'd maintained this asymmetrical arrangement. Jessica has her own expenses, her wedding to plan, her future to think about. We can't burden her with these kinds of problems right now. Besides, you've always been the responsible one, the daughter I can count on when things get difficult. That phrase, the responsible one, crystallized years of manipulation into a moment of perfect clarity. I wasn't the responsible daughter. I was the convenient daughter, the one whose life could be disrupted and whose finances could be drained because I'd been systematically conditioned to prioritize family obligations over personal boundaries. If I'm so responsible and Jessica's so successful, I heard myself saying with a calm that surprised even me, then surely the successful daughter should be able to handle the family financial responsibilities. Or are you saying that despite all your praise for her achievements, she's actually not capable of helping her own mother? This is where everything started falling apart for Mom, because she'd painted herself into a logical corner with years of contradictory messaging. She couldn't admit that Jessica was financially unavailable without undermining the narrative of Jessica's superior success. But she also couldn't admit that she deliberately excluded Jessica from family responsibilities while overburdening me with them. It's not about capability, she stammered. It's about, well, Jessica is building her life right now, and she needs to focus on her career and her relationship. You're more established, more settled. You can handle these temporary setbacks better than she can. The absurdity of that statement hit me like cold water. I was more settled because my financial resources were constantly drained by family obligations, preventing me from building the kind of life that Jessica enjoyed. I was more established because I'd been forced into premature responsibility while Jessica was protected from family realities that might interfere with her personal ambitions. Mom, I said, feeling 3 decades of suppressed anger crystallizing into something that felt like power. Let me understand this correctly. You're saying that Jessica, who makes 6 figures at a prestigious consulting firm, who just bought a luxury apartment, who takes expensive vacations multiple times a year, is less capable of helping with a $2,400 house payment than I am, working a middle management job while supporting your monthly expenses. What happened next shattered not just our immediate conversation, but the entire foundation of lies that had structured our family dynamics for my entire adult life. Mom's defensive response revealed information that she'd apparently never intended to share, admissions that painted a completely different picture of Jessica's financial situation and her willingness to help with family obligations. You don't understand the full situation, Mom said, her voice taking on a panicked quality that I'd never heard before. Jessica has her own financial obligations, her own challenges that she's dealing with privately. She's not in a position to help right now, and she's asked me specifically not to involve her in these kinds of family financial discussions. That revelation hit me like a physical blow. She's asked you not to involve her? So Jessica knows about your financial problems, and she's specifically opted out of helping while I've been carrying the entire burden without even knowing that she was aware. The silence stretched so long that I thought the call had disconnected, but then Mom's voice came back smaller, more defensive, filled with the recognition that she'd revealed too much information while trying to justify her favoritism. It's more complicated than you're making it sound, Sarah. Jessica has different circumstances, different priorities. She's planning a wedding, she has student loans, she has lifestyle expenses that are necessary for her career advancement. We agreed that it would be better if she focused on establishing herself professionally rather than getting distracted by family financial issues. Each word felt like another piece of the puzzle clicking into place, revealing a picture that was more devastating than I'd imagined possible. Not only had Mom been systematically exploiting my sense of family obligation while protecting Jessica from similar expectations, but Jessica had been a willing participant in this arrangement, consciously choosing to let me carry the financial burden alone. So let me get this straight, I said, my voice growing stronger with each word. Jessica knows you struggle with money, knows I've been helping you, and has specifically asked to be excluded from these responsibilities so she can maintain her lifestyle without interruption. Is that accurate? Sarah, please don't make this sound worse than it is. Families work differently, and we all contribute in different ways. Jessica contributes emotionally. She calls regularly. She visits for holidays. She brings joy to my life in ways that matter just as much as financial support. The manipulation in that statement was so transparent that it almost made me laugh. Emotional support, which cost Jessica nothing and actually benefited her through Mom's constant praise and validation, was being positioned as equivalent to thousands of dollars in financial sacrifice that had fundamentally altered my life trajectory. Does Jessica know how much money I've sent you over the years? I asked, genuinely curious about whether her opt-out was based on full information or carefully filtered communication from Mom. Another long pause, and then, we don't discuss specific amounts. She knows you help sometimes, but we don't need to burden her with detailed financial information. Sometimes. The word came out louder than I intended. Mom, I've sent you over $30,000 in the past 4 years. That's not sometimes, that's a substantial financial commitment that's affected every major decision in my life. I've delayed buying a house, postponed graduate school, and limited my retirement contributions because I've been subsidizing your lifestyle, while Jessica remains completely insulated from any family financial reality. 30,000. Mom's voice sounded genuinely shocked, as if she'd never added up the cumulative impact of her requests. It can't be that much, Sarah. You're exaggerating to make your point. But I had the spreadsheet, the careful tracking that had revealed the devastating reality of my financial sacrifice. I have records, Mom. Every payment, every request, every emergency that somehow became my responsibility to solve. $32,418 to be exact. That's what Jessica's emotional support has cost me. The conversation took on a surreal quality as Mom tried to process information that she'd apparently never allowed herself to fully comprehend. The requests had been individual transactions in her mind, separate events that she'd justified individually without considering their cumulative impact on my life. I never realized. I mean, I knew you were helping, but I didn't think about it adding up to so much over time. Sarah, I'm grateful for everything you've done, you know that. But you make it sound like I've been taking advantage of you, and that's not fair. Then prove it, I said, the words coming from some deep place of anger and frustration that I'd never accessed before. If this arrangement is fair, if I'm not being taken advantage of, then ask Jessica to take over the house payment for a while. See if she's as willing to sacrifice for family as you've been telling everyone I should be. What happened next changed everything forever. Mom's immediate, desperate response revealed the true nature of our family dynamics and her complete unwillingness to risk Jessica's comfort for the sake of fairness or honesty. I can't ask Jessica to do that. She'll think I've been mismanaging money, she'll want to get involved in my finances, she'll start asking questions about how I spend money and whether I really need help. It would completely change our relationship. There it was, the admission that destroyed everything. Mom valued her relationship with Jessica too much to risk it with financial responsibility, but she was perfectly comfortable destroying my financial stability because she knew I wouldn't abandon her the way Jessica apparently would. That conversation ended without resolution, but it planted a seed of rebellion that grew quickly into something I'd never experienced before. The absolute refusal to continue enabling a system that was destroying my life while protecting someone who'd consciously opted out of family responsibilities. For the first time in my adult life, I didn't send money when Mom called with her mortgage emergency, and the silence that followed was both terrifying and liberating. 3 days later, Mom called back with escalated desperation, but also with a new strategy that revealed just how far she was willing to go to maintain the established dynamic. Sarah, I've been thinking about our conversation, and I realize I may have given you the wrong impression about Jessica's situation. She's actually quite willing to help, but she's been waiting for me to ask directly. The lie was so transparent and desperate that it actually made me feel sorry for her, until she continued with an even more manipulative approach that destroyed any remaining sympathy. I spoke with Jessica yesterday, and she's very upset that you think she wouldn't help with family emergencies. She said she's always been willing to contribute, but she assumed you preferred handling things yourself since you never mentioned needing help. She feels terrible that there's been a misunderstanding between you girls. This new narrative was designed to make me the villain in the story, the sister who'd been selfishly hoarding family responsibility instead of sharing the burden equitably. It was manipulation so sophisticated that I almost admired its creativity, even as it filled me with rage. Put her on a three-way call, I said immediately. If Jessica is willing to help and has just been waiting to be asked, then let's call her right now and work out how we're going to split the mortgage payment going forward. The panic in Mom's voice was immediate and obvious. Oh, well, she's at work right now, and you know how busy her schedule is. Maybe we could arrange something later, when she has more time to discuss financial planning properly. Mom, it's 7 p.m. on the East Coast. Even if she's working late, she can take 5 minutes for a family financial emergency that you said requires immediate attention. Call her now, or I'm going to call her directly and explain the entire situation myself. The threat of direct communication between Jessica and me about family finances was apparently Mom's worst nightmare, because her response revealed the depth of her desperation to maintain control over information flow between her daughters. Sarah, please don't involve Jessica in our problems. This is between you and me, and we can work it out without dragging her into complicated family dynamics. She has her own stress to deal with, and adding financial worry would be cruel when she's trying to plan her wedding and advance her career. But I was done being managed, done being the designated problem solver, while Jessica lived in a carefully maintained bubble of privilege and protection. If family financial emergencies are too stressful for Jessica to handle, then maybe all those conversations about her superior success and responsibility are just fantasy. Or maybe you've been lying to both of us about the nature of our family relationships. I haven't been lying, Mom protested, but her voice lacked conviction. I've been protecting both of you girls in different ways. You're stronger, Sarah, more resilient. You can handle difficult situations better than Jessica can. It's not favoritism, it's understanding your different strengths and using them appropriately. That explanation was the final straw, the last insult that pushed me beyond any possibility of continued enabling. Being told that my systematic exploitation was actually evidence of my superior strength was so psychologically twisted that it clarified everything about the family dynamic I'd been trapped in for decades. You're right about one thing, Mom. I am stronger than you thought. I'm strong enough to stop letting you destroy my life to protect Jessica's perfect world. I'm strong enough to establish boundaries that you've never had to respect before. And I'm strong enough to let you face the consequences of your financial decisions without automatically fixing everything. What are you saying, Sarah? You can't just abandon your family when we need you most. This isn't who you are. You're the one who takes care of things, who steps up when situations get difficult. No, I said with a clarity that felt like freedom. I'm the one you've trained to take care of things because it was convenient for you and protective of Jessica. But that training ends now. If you need help with the house payment, call your other daughter. The successful one. The responsible one. The one you're always bragging about to everyone who'll listen. Sarah, please don't do this. I'll talk to Jessica. I'll explain the situation properly. Maybe we can work out some kind of arrangement where you both contribute something. Would that be fair? But I was past the point of negotiation or compromise. Years of financial sacrifice and emotional manipulation couldn't be balanced out with token contributions from Jessica or promises of future equity that would never materialize. Here's what's going to happen, I said, feeling 3 decades of suppressed anger crystallizing into something that felt like power. You're going to call Jessica tonight and explain that you need help with the mortgage. You're going to tell her exactly how much money I've sent over the years and ask if she's willing to take over those payments going forward. And then you're going to call me back and tell me what she said. And if she can't help right now, if her financial situation is more complicated than you understand, then you're going to figure out your own solutions, like the independent adult you've always claimed to be when it suits your narrative. The call I'd been waiting for came 2 days later, and Mom's voice carried a defeat that I'd never heard before, the sound of someone whose carefully constructed reality had finally collapsed under the weight of its own contradictions. What she told me next was better than any revenge I could have planned, because it revealed the true nature of both Jessica and the family dynamics that had shaped my entire adult life. "I called Jessica like you asked," Mom began, her voice small and uncertain. "I explained about the mortgage situation, about needing help with the house payments, about how family responsibilities sometimes require financial sacrifice." "And what did she say?" I asked, though I already suspected the answer based on Mom's deflated tone. "She got very quiet for a long time, and then she asked how much money you'd been sending over the years. When I told her it was around $30,000, she was shocked. She said she had no idea the amounts were so substantial, that she'd assumed it was occasional small help, maybe a few $100s here and there." This was the moment I'd been waiting for, the revelation of Jessica's true character when faced with actual family responsibility instead of just the benefits of family connection. "Then she said something that really surprised me," Mom continued, her voice growing even smaller. "She said that kind of financial commitment was way beyond what she could handle right now, that she had her own financial goals and responsibilities that couldn't be compromised for family emergencies." The irony was perfect. Jessica, who'd been held up as the model of success and responsibility for my entire life, crumbled the moment she was asked to demonstrate those qualities through actual sacrifice. All her supposed superiority evaporated when faced with the same financial obligations that I'd been meeting for years without recognition or praise. "But that's not the worst part," Mom said, and I could hear tears in her voice. She asked me why I hadn't been more transparent about the family financial situation, why I'd let you carry such a huge burden alone while keeping her completely uninformed. She said it seemed manipulative and unfair, and that she was disappointed in how I'd handled the whole situation. I felt a surge of vindication so strong it was almost overwhelming. Jessica's judgment of Mom's manipulation was exactly what I'd been feeling for years, but hearing it from the golden child carried infinitely more weight in Mom's emotional economy. "Then she said something that really hurt," Mom continued. "She said that my favoritism toward her had been obvious for years, and that she'd been uncomfortable with how I treated you, but hadn't known how to address it without seeming ungrateful for the advantages I'd given her." This revelation hit different than I'd expected. Part of me felt validated that my perception of favoritism had been accurate and observable to others, but another part felt sad that Jessica had recognized the dynamic but chosen to benefit from it rather than speak up for fairness. "So what's Jessica's solution to the mortgage problem?" I asked, curious to see how the golden child would handle her first real family crisis. "She suggested that I should downsize to something more affordable, maybe sell the house and move to a smaller place that fits my actual budget. She said that expecting adult children to subsidize their parents' lifestyle choices wasn't healthy for anyone involved." The advice was actually sound and mature, which made Mom's rejection of it all the more revealing about her true priorities and expectations. She also said that if I couldn't afford the house on my own, then I'd been living beyond my means and needed to make adult decisions about my financial reality rather than depending on my children to fix problems I'd created. Jessica's practical response highlighted everything that had been wrong with the family dynamic. I'd been enabling Mom's financial irresponsibility while Jessica, from her protective distance, could see the situation clearly and offer reasonable solutions that didn't involve sacrificing her own financial stability. "What did you tell her?" I asked, fascinated by this glimpse into how Mom responded when her manipulation tactics failed completely. "I told her that the house has sentimental value, that it's full of memories of your father, that moving would be too traumatic at my age. But she said that emotional attachment doesn't pay mortgages, and that I needed to make practical decisions based on reality rather than sentiment." The conversation had apparently continued with Jessica offering to help Mom research smaller properties and downsize her belongings, but firmly refusing to take over mortgage payments for a house that Mom couldn't actually afford. It was exactly the kind of boundary setting that I'd never been able to achieve, delivered with the confidence of someone who'd never been groomed to be the family problem solver. She ended the conversation by saying that she loved me but wouldn't enable financial irresponsibility, and that she hoped I could understand the difference between supporting family and subsidizing poor decision-making. Mom's voice cracked as she delivered Jessica's final message, that she'd always be available for emotional support and genuine emergencies, but that chronic financial problems required adult solutions rather than perpetual bailouts from family members. "So now what?" I asked, feeling a mixture of satisfaction and genuine curiosity about what would happen next. "I guess I need to start looking at smaller places," Mom admitted with obvious reluctance. Jessica was right about one thing. "I can't afford this house on my own, and it's not fair to expect you to keep sacrificing your future to pay for my past decisions." The acknowledgement felt like a victory, but also like the end of an era. The family dynamic that had defined my adult life was finally crumbling, replaced by something that might actually resemble healthy boundaries and mutual respect. 3 months later, Mom moved to a cozy 2-bedroom condo that she could afford on her Social Security income, with money left over from the house sale to create an actual emergency fund. Jessica helped with the move, flying in for a weekend to pack and organize, finally contributing to family logistics in a practical way. The most surprising outcome was how our relationship shifted once the financial manipulation ended. Without the constant crisis management, Mom and I started talking about other things: my work, my interests, my life beyond her problems. Jessica and I had our first honest conversation in years, where she apologized for benefiting from Mom's favoritism and admitted she'd always felt guilty about the obvious inequality, but hadn't known how to address it without seeming ungrateful. "I knew it wasn't fair," Jessica told me during a long phone call after Mom's move was complete. "I could see how differently she treated us, but I was young and selfish, and it was easier to just accept the advantages than to fight for fairness that might have cost me those benefits." Her honesty was refreshing and painful at the same time, but it opened the door to a relationship based on reality rather than the roles Mom had assigned us. We started talking regularly, sharing actual details about our lives instead of competing for maternal approval through achievement comparisons. The financial freedom I gained from ending Mom's subsidies was transformative beyond anything I'd expected. Within 6 months, I'd saved enough for a down payment on my own small house, the first major purchase I'd made for myself in years. My retirement contributions increased dramatically, and for the first time since college, I was able to plan vacations and personal goals without factoring in potential family financial emergencies. But the most valuable change was psychological. The constant anxiety about money disappeared, replaced by a sense of control over my own financial destiny that I'd never experienced as an adult. I realized how much mental energy had been consumed by Mom's chronic financial drama, energy that was now available for my own growth and happiness. Mom's adjustment to financial independence was harder than she'd expected, but ultimately healthier for everyone involved. She learned to budget carefully, prioritize expenses, and make realistic decisions about her lifestyle. The victim mentality that had characterized her approach to money gradually gave way to something resembling adult responsibility. 6 months after that pivotal phone call, I received an unexpected text from Mom. "Thank you for forcing me to grow up financially. I should have learned these lessons decades ago, but I'm grateful to learn them now before it was too late." The message was accompanied by a photo of her new budget spreadsheet, color-coded and detailed, showing how she was managing her finances responsibly for the first time in years. It was a small thing, but it represented a fundamental shift in how she approached money and family relationships. Jessica's wedding happened 8 months later, and for the first time in family history, it felt like a celebration that included everyone equally rather than a Jessica appreciation ceremony where I played a supporting role. I contributed what I could afford to gift without financial strain. Mom contributed what she could afford from her stable budget. And Jessica appreciated both contributions without expecting anyone to sacrifice their financial stability for her special day. The most surprising moment came during Jessica's wedding speech, when she publicly thanked both Mom and me for our different contributions to her life, but specifically mentioned how my financial sacrifices over the years had helped keep our family stable during difficult times. It was the first time Mom's favoritism had been publicly acknowledged and corrected, and the recognition felt better than any revenge I could have planned. Looking back now, I realize that standing up to mom's financial manipulation wasn't just about money, it was about reclaiming my right to make my own life choices without being constrained by someone else's poor planning and emotional manipulation. The family dynamic that had seemed permanent and unchangeable turned out to be maintained only by my willingness to accept it. The house mom couldn't afford is now owned by a young family with children who actually need the space and can afford the payments. Mom's condo is paid off, comfortable, and appropriate for her actual lifestyle needs. Jessica's marriage is thriving without the shadow of family financial drama, and my own life finally belongs to me instead of being held hostage by crisis management. Sometimes the best revenge isn't elaborate planning or dramatic confrontation. It's simply refusing to continue enabling the people who've been taking advantage of your good nature. When I finally said, "Ask Jessica to pay your bills," I wasn't just calling out mom's favoritism. I was claiming my right to live my own life on my own terms. The family karma that eventually emerged wasn't about punishment or payback. It was about truth and consequences finally aligning after years of artificial protection and manipulation. Jessica had to face the reality of family responsibility for the first time. Mom had to learn financial independence at age 67. And I got to discover what my life could look like when I wasn't sacrificing everything for people who took my generosity for granted. Have you ever been the family member expected to sacrifice everything while someone else gets protected from responsibility? Has karma ever served justice in your family drama in ways you never expected? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Sometimes knowing we're not alone in these struggles makes all the difference. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life family drama stories that prove truth really is stranger than fiction. Share this with anyone who's ever been the responsible child while their sibling got all the praise. They'll understand every word of this journey. Thank you for listening to my family revenge story, and remember, sometimes the best way to change a toxic family dynamic is to simply stop participating in it. Life's too short to spend it fixing other people's problems while your own dreams get postponed indefinitely. Here's to setting boundaries, demanding fairness, and discovering that standing up for yourself doesn't make you selfish, it makes you free.